Hey everyone, welcome back. So glad to have you here for another deep dive. And today we're tackling a big one. Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Oh, yeah. This is a classic.
It really is. I mean, this book has become like the mindfulness Bible for so many people. And, for good reason, right? It's got so much wisdom packed in there.
It really does. It's
Yeah.
had such a profound impact on so many people's lives.
Yeah. No, for me, I catch myself, sometimes just getting totally lost in my thoughts, whether I'm like reliving some embarrassing moment from the past or stressing about deadlines. It's
Yeah.
like I'm stuck in this mental time machine. I can't shut it off. Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, absolutely. I think we all have those moments
Yeah.
where our mind just takes over and it pulls us away from the present. That's really what the power of now is all about, isn't it?
It is. It totally is. It's about recognizing those moments
No.
and coming back to the present. And Tolle calls that mental chatter the ego, right?
Yeah.
That voice that's always focused on me, myself, and I.
Exactly. The ego is that part of us that's constantly seeking attention, always wants to be right, always wants to be in control.
Yeah, and it sounds kind of intense when you put it like that, like the ego. What's the big deal with this ego anyway? How does it actually stop us from enjoying the present moment?
Well, think about it this way. The ego thrives on drama. It loves to keep us bouncing between past regrets and future anxieties.
Oh, okay. I see where you're going with this.
Tolle calls this psychological time,
Mm.
and it's like the biggest trap that keeps us from truly experiencing the now.
So it's not just about actual time, like what we see on the clock.
Right. Clock time is real, obviously. It helps us get to appointments on time and all that.
Right, of course.
But our minds tend to take it a step further. We start replaying past hurts as if they're happening right now,
Oh, I do that all the time.
or we project anxieties onto the future, which hasn't even arrived. It's like
Yeah.
our minds are hooked on this drama channel, constantly replaying the same painful scenes, or anxiously previewing scary ones. And that's where the ego really comes in.
So the ego is like the director of this mental drama.
Exactly. It keeps us so engrossed in the show that we totally miss the beauty of what's happening right in front of us.
Wow. It's wild when you think about it like that.
It is. Tolle argues that this obsession with psychological time is the root of a lot of our suffering.
Which makes sense because we're never really fully present, right? We're
Yeah.
always somewhere else in our minds.
Exactly. And then there's another piece to this puzzle, something Tolle calls the pain body.
Oh, yeah, the pain body. I was wondering when we were going to get to that. What is that exactly? And how does it relate to this ego time trap situation?
So the pain body is like this reservoir of all the emotional hurt you've accumulated over your life.
Oh, wow.
The heartbreaks, the disappointments, the traumas.
Yeah, we all have those.
We all do.
Wow.
And it's like a shadow self that just thrives on negativity.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does it work? Like, give me an example.
Sure. Let's say you have a presentation at work and it doesn't go well. The ego might latch onto that and start replaying the event over and over, focusing on your perceived failures.
Okay, yeah, I can see that happening.
And then the pain body jumps in and starts amplifying those feelings with all sorts of old insecurities and fears.
So it's like a double whammy.
It really is. The ego keeps us stuck in the past or the future, and then the pain body just adds fuel to the fire by dredging up all this old emotional baggage. Together, they create this vicious cycle that prevents us from experiencing the peace and joy of the present moment.
It sounds like a recipe for misery.
It can be, but the good news is that Tolle offers a way out. He provides these specific techniques and practices that can help us escape this mental time warp and really tap into the power of the now. But before we dive into those, we need to explore what he actually means by presence.
All right, let's do it. I'm ready to learn how to break free from this ego pain body cycle.
So presence isn't just about, physically being somewhere. It's about bringing your full attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we do that? It's so easy to get caught up in our thoughts and pulled away from the now.
Right, it is. Our minds are like constantly generating these thoughts that pull us in a million different directions. But Tolle offers all sorts of techniques to help us cultivate presence. One of my favorites is the practice of using what he calls triggers.
Triggers, what are those?
Basically, it's about taking any everyday activity and turning it into an opportunity to practice mindfulness.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so like what? Give me some examples.
Sure. Think about something as simple as like washing the dishes.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of letting your mind wander to your to-do list or whatever, you bring your full attention to the task at hand. You feel the warm water on your hands, you feel the slipperiness of the soap,
Mm.
you hear the clinking of the dishes.
So it's about really engaging all your senses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Noticing the subtle details you might normally miss.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be dishes. It could be brushing your teeth, folding laundry, even waiting in line at the grocery store.
I like that. It's like we're hacking our daily routines to become more present.
Exactly.
Okay, that's cool. But Tolle also talks about this idea of surrender.
Right.
He does.
How does that fit into all of this?
Surrender is huge E in the power of now. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and just accepting the present moment as it is without resistance.
But isn't that like super hard? I mean, our natural instinct is to like resist unpleasant situations or, painful emotions.
It is a practice, and it can feel counterintuitive at first. But when
Mhm.
you think about it, resisting something often just makes it stronger.
Right. Yeah, that's
When you
exactly.
push against a feeling, it usually just intensifies. But surrender is like dropping the rope in a tug of war.
Okay. So it's not about giving up or becoming passive.
No, not at all.
It's about choosing a different way to engage. Yes. It's about recognizing that fighting reality just creates more suffering. When you surrender to what is, you're not resigning yourself to those circumstances. You're just opening yourself up to a different way of experiencing them.
Okay. That's interesting. I see how this all ties together. We become more aware of our thoughts and emotions. We use these triggers to bring ourselves back to the now. And we practice surrender to let go of resistance. But what about the pain body? I mean, we talked earlier about how that can sabotage our efforts to be present.
Right.
How do we deal with that?
Yeah. Addressing the pain body is really essential for lasting peace and happiness. Tolle says that bringing conscious awareness to it is key. So when you notice those familiar patterns of negativity popping up, those old wounds resurfacing, you just observe them.
So it's like noticing those feelings without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. Tolle says it's like shining a light into a dark room. When you bring awareness to the pain body, you're basically illuminating those shadowy emotions. And when they're exposed to the light of consciousness, they start to lose their power over you.
I love that imagery. It's powerful. But it still sounds really challenging. Like, how do we actually put that into practice?
It starts with recognizing the pain body when it shows up.
Yeah.
So the next time you feel this surge of negativity, take a pause and ask yourself, is this the pain body speaking? Notice the sensations in your body, the thoughts in your mind. Don't judge those feelings, just observe them with curiosity.
So we become like detectives of our own inner world.
Exactly. And as you become more adept at recognizing the pain body, you can start to practice non-resistance. Remember, resisting those feelings just amplifies them. So try to accept their presence without judgment.
This all sounds like a process, a gradual process. But what's the end game here? What happens when we learn to detach from the pain body?
Tolle says that as you detach from the pain body's grip, you experience this profound sense of inner peace and freedom. You're no longer driven by those old patterns of reactivity, the fears and insecurities.
Wow. So it's not just about feeling better in the moment, it's about transforming like our whole way of being.
Exactly. And that transformation opens the door to experiencing a much deeper level of joy, love, and fulfillment.
That's amazing. But I have a question. I know some people might be thinking, well, if I'm always focused on the present moment, how can I plan for the future? How can I be responsible and get things done? What would Tully say to that?
That's a great question, and that's a common one. Tolle definitely acknowledges the importance of planning and taking practical action. But he makes a distinction between practical planning and what he calls worrying about the future.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Practical planning involves taking, concrete steps in the present moment to move towards your goals.
Okay.
Like let's say you want to save up for a down payment on a house. You can create a budget. You can stick to it. That's taking action in the now.
Right. Makes sense.
Worrying about the future, on the other hand, is about getting caught up in those hypothetical scenarios and anxieties that haven't even happened yet.
So it's about focusing on what you can control in the present, rather than getting lost in that mental maze of what ifs.
Exactly. And by taking those practical steps, you're actually making progress towards your future goals. But you're doing it in a way that doesn't steal your present peace of mind.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about those times when we're going through something really difficult? Like, how can we possibly be happy in the present moment if we're facing, a lot of hardship?
That's such a valid question. And Tolle doesn't say that we should deny or ignore those difficult emotions. He knows that life involves pain and suffering. But he argues that even in the midst of those challenges, there can still be moments of peace, beauty, and even joy.
Really? How is that possible? How can we find joy when we're struggling?
Tolle uses this really beautiful analogy. He says, imagine a flower growing through a crack in the pavement. Despite the harsh conditions, the flower is still able to bloom and express its beauty.
It's like a symbol of resilience, isn't it? Even in the toughest circumstances, there's still that potential for beauty and growth.
Exactly. And Tolle's point is that we can do the same thing in our own lives. We can choose to focus on those little glimmers of hope and joy, even when things are hard.
So it's about like consciously shifting our perspective, choosing where we direct our attention.
Yes. It's about training ourselves to see the good, even amidst the bad. And the more we practice that, the more those moments of peace and joy will start to emerge.
Okay, that makes sense. But I'm thinking about another question that people might have. If we're always focused on the present moment, does that mean we become passive or complacent? Like, do we stop setting goals or working towards a better future?
I can see how people might worry about that. But Tolle's really clear that living in the now isn't about giving up on your dreams or becoming passive. He actually says that being present can actually enhance your ability to achieve your goals.
Oh, really? How does that work?
When you're fully present, you're more focused, you're more creative, you're more resilient. You're not wasting all this energy on the past or the future. So you can channel all of that energy and attention into what you're doing right now.
So it's not about choosing between presence and ambition. It's about recognizing that they can work together.
Exactly. Embracing the present moment can actually boost your ability to create the future that you want, a future that aligns with your values and aspirations.
That's so cool. This deep dive into the power of now has been incredible. We've explored so much, from understanding the ego and the pain body to learning about practical techniques for cultivating presence and surrendering to what is. It's a lot to take in, for sure. But for you, what's the most important takeaway from the power of now?
For me, it's that true happiness doesn't come from outside of yourself. It's not about achieving something or acquiring something. It's about tapping into a state of being that's already within you, here and now.
It's about shifting from seeking happiness in the future to realizing that it's available to us right now.
Yeah. And the more we practice presence, the more we can tap into that wellspring of joy and peace that's always been there.
This has been such a rich conversation. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of Tolle's teachings now. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with as we wrap up our exploration of the power of now?
Just a reminder, it's a journey, not a destination. There will be times when your mind wanders, when you get caught up in old patterns. But the key is to just notice those moments without judgment and gently bring your attention back to the present.
It's like we're training our minds to be more present, one moment at a time. And even if we're not perfect at it, every time we choose presence, we're getting stronger.
You got it. And those small moments of presence, they can have this ripple effect, making you more patient, more compassionate, more resilient when things get tough.
I love that. It's so inspiring to think that even those small shifts in our awareness can have such a big impact on our lives. All right, before we go, I want to leave you all with something to think about, something that builds on everything we've talked about today. If you could let go of one past regret or one future worry, what would it be? And how would letting go of that burden change your experience of this present moment?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, it is. And remember, even the smallest steps towards presence can make a big difference. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the power of now. We'll be back soon with another exploration of a topic that matters. Until then, stay curious, stay present, and keep exploring.